Alright. Alright, now we just wait for a few seconds, about 10 seconds, to see if it kicks in. Oh, looks like it started. At least on the YouTube side. Alright, everybody, you are listening to The Disclaimers by Ed Johnston. Tonight he's got if he sticks with the original plan, which this is Ed, we know sometimes, it's going to be about immigrants and illegals. Uh,
Oh,
so
tonight is supposed to be on Amish.
you told me, and I wrote it on. Okay, fine. All right, now he's altered his idea, so now we're going to go with the Amish. So
Anyhow, apparently we're doing that again, and I'm going to get into that with the Amish because the one thing is that's what I publicized all week, and that's what I did. And so apparently I had miscommunications that I am responsible for.
okay, see,
So I want to get
I
into
double checked
that.
what I had written down. So either way, Ed, it is your show. I'm just the one that kicks people out if they're too obnoxious, which I can't kick the star, so but I can mute them.
Can't kick that forward. I'm grateful right now.
It is January 27th, 2018, guys, and Ed, take it away.
Anyhow, I thank you all for joining again. This is the one thing that coming down on proper education. I'm still learning a lot myself, putting together more and more pieces together of the actual puzzle compared to what we are led to believe. And that is the one thing of comprehending. It's like, capitalization, small letters, how it works compared to what we've actually been allegedly educated in the corporation school system. And that's the one thing that I do let people know that I don't trust any public servant. They're not worth being trusted. Never met one that was honorable. Never met one that was actually had real structure. So it's one of those things that it is very interesting when it really comes down to the real truth on these things. And that's the one thing that people need to comprehend the real truth compared to what people go through. And that is the one thing that I have been putting together, working a lot on this stuff. So this way we put the stuff together without a conflict of interest. And so long as we don't put in a conflict of interest, we can sit there and make sure that we have our rights intact. But the main important thing, and I plan on doing a segment here coming up dealing with Ken Ball or Ken whatever name he wants to use this week. He's changed many of his names, and that's interesting. It's really disturbing when people do that. They do this because whatever their purpose is, but it doesn't matter. But when you keep changing your name, it is one of those things that make you wonder. Now he does run the Facebook site, the children, the birth certificate. Hang on a minute, I'll gotta get this printed up so I can sit there. I wasn't ready on that one. But it's called Ending the Certificate of Live Birth and Birth Certificate at Local Hospitals is his site. And this is what I want to get into with the Amish and illegal in immigration. See, it really disturbs me because people don't comprehend why our forefathers put the structures of information together. They don't comprehend reality. And that's a serious part of it. Because everybody keeps wants to whining that, oh my God, let's make it easy. Let's get rid of the birth certificates. No, we don't. We want to make sure we have a record of who's in our country. This border is not an open country to anybody in the world. We are not a world organization, the United States, for we the people of the 48 states. We're not for the world. We are for our bloodline, native bloodline. And that's even in the Article 1, Section 10. I mean, I ask people to read the Constitution, read the laws, read what our forefathers put together. And people go, well, I want to change it. Well, if you want to change it, get the hell out of our country. Because we didn't ask you to come into our country invaded. We didn't ask you to come to our country. You know, we didn't ask people to bring their points of view and their other structures to our country. They invaded our country. They raped, robbed, and pillaged our native people. You know, then they cut our hairs off and they put us in different Bible studies. No offense to those in the deal, but I'm going by real history. I'm not trying to do that in disrespect, but I'm going by real history. Because we're native, you know, we go by Mother Earth, the Great Spirit, and the Creator. Now, I have total respect to the First Amendment, right? That gives men and women equal rights. And that means men and women equal rights. That includes your right to religion, beliefs. Doesn't mean that you have a right to preach it to everybody else on a street corner. You know, and then people wonder why, well, they got arrested for handing out religious structure on the street corner. Well, you're allowed to preach, but, like, come on, people. Let's be a little bit more realistic. You know, we forgot what it is like to have respect and honor for one another, and we're living this fashion today. And this is where I'm going to get into the Amish structure that I've been reading and following. I've tried to contact their media and their media personnel over on the East Coast, and I've had conversations with so-called editors and owners of some of the Amish newspapers. Well, then I found out the Amish newspapers are owned by, really, not Amish men and women. They're just calling themselves Amish newspapers, and it's interesting when you read some of the way they put these articles together. Some of them are a little mind-twisting to control the Amish men and women through the devil structure called democracy. So when you sit down and you read some of this stuff, when you have an open mind and you comprehend how things are worded, of course, I'm still being blessed and learning more and more about different words that I plan on opening up more and more people to here in time, but I want to make sure before I start discussing those things, I have it secured in my own mind. I don't want to go off on stuff and then find out that I missed the part. I want to make sure I have it actually secured in my own mind, because in that way I cannot have a conflict of interest in my own mind. Yes, a conflict of interest can be brought up in your own mind too. So we want to make sure that this stuff is brought to everyone's attention. And the one movie or video I do publicize, and I do believe we have on our website, new.org and trackers, is everybody must know this before it's deleted, why the government always is hiding it. And this is a native video of how foreigners came into this country and raped, robbed, and pillaged our people, murdered them for personal financial gain, sold their scalps in foreign countries when they took them back overseas. And then everybody comes to our country and says we have a right to be here because you're supposed to be an open country for anybody who wants to live here. Sorry, we have immigration laws going back to 1770. That's the reason why the 1776 war happened with the British government. You know, AKA the Vatican, the Roman Catholic Church. So, I mean, and that's the one point that people have got to start figuring this stuff out and quit living in fantasy. Most of us do comprehend. We do have pleasant conversations. We comprehend that we live here. A lot of us, our families go back 3, 5, 10, 15, 20 generations. So, but if you're less than 5 generations, 4, 3, 2, 1, you're an immigrant. You have privileges. And by our administrative laws and our Constitution, we can ship you out. And it's DREAM Act, DACA, whatever you want to call it this week, diaper face, doesn't exist, because when you wake up from a dream, you have to come to reality. And so the people, when you're doing this stuff, instead of always complaining about immigration, you know, I put up affidavits in the past. So I'll get another one. We'll get one up. I think we have one on new.org and trackers. But it's your responsibility to stop whining like little girls and boys. Yes, you whine so much on Facebook and the internet. It's amazing watching these little boys and girls whine. You give them ammunition. You try to explain to them how they need to file this, notarize something, have something stamped so that way it's certified. And then people panic. They're like, what do you mean we got to do it this way? That's called being an adult. And most people cannot be an adult. That's the saddest part. Everybody wants to go, oh, somebody else needs to handle it for me. Somebody else needs to do this for me. I'm not incapable of doing it. Well, when you say that, then you have no rights to be involved in the public. Period. Because if you're out there in the public and you're whining like little children and not educating one another, and all you're doing is destroying men and women and children by doing that, by not properly bringing out the facts, the truth. Those are things that, need to be brought out. This is the point that with the whole circumstances of evidence in life. And evidence, when you go to court, if you don't have factual evidence going to court, you can't talk in court because hearsay evidence is inadmissible. But also, too, you need to know what court you're going into. Or you're going, and that's the one thing about the flags. And the ball, the spear, and all that on the flags that when you go into court. Any court. I don't care. Any court has a gold fringe flag on it, even by the states. And when the states have a gold fringe flag, that's federal treason. Executive Order 10834. And you make sure you file it on the judge, but also, too, when you do that, you have to file and ask the judge what oath he took. Did he take a Constitution oath, or did he take the corporation oath? Because you need to know how to file on that judge of which jurisdiction to file on him. This is the one thing that people do not comprehend. There's 13 jurisdictions in your court system. And you have to know if it's capital state, lower state, small state, or all capital state. Or like what I've been going through is like this state. When you file your paperwork, you want to make sure that you are claiming you are on the land and the soil. Comprehending that. I was blessed to have further explanation on it. I knew this, I've said this in the past, but it got through my head a little more clearer. Sometimes it takes that for, us to get that because it does work that way. And once you start putting these pieces together, knowing how to file your instruments. Okay, now the Bundys are filing this criminal complaint now and all this stuff, or wrongful death suit. I don't see a criminal complaint. I don't see criminal charges filed on the mayor, even the mayor of the town that was involved where they went through this. I don't see a criminal complaint on a sheriff. I don't see a criminal complaint even on little boy Finnegan's murderer. I don't see any legal constitution structure in this structure going on. I don't see any of it. Okay? All I hear is that this is interesting. This is all I hear is wrongful death suit. Well, it wasn't a wrongful death suit. It was an actual murder. Damages, personal and property damage. You file that wrongful death suit, but you have to file that in the real court, not the corporation court. And like I mention to people all the time, if you hire an attorney, when you hire an attorney or a lawyer, you give up your constitution rights. And that's the one thing, like with the Amish people are going, because they got cities that are telling them, and their counties are telling them if they don't hook up the city sewer and city electricity, they're going to go after them, put them in jail, or try to steal their land. Well, with these people, these men and women need to learn how to file on their land to own their land. See, when you have deeds, that ain't ownership. You have to file to own your land. I could give you a title to a car, but you don't own that car. Whoever has the title registration, when you register that title with the state, you have a title for the car, but you don't have ownership for that car. You're giving that car basically over to the state and say, well, I'm not responsible to own it, so basically I'm taking liability for it. And technically, I was working on an issue 6-7 years ago that if you had your car registered with the state, seeing that the state owns it, they shall be liable for maintenance, tires, and all that. But I never got finishing that, and if I would have finished that, that would have been a heck of an instrument. Because if they're claiming ownership, they're liable for the damages, they're liable for insurance, property damage, they're liable for the maintenance of the vehicle. Same thing as a corporation is, because when you register your vehicle, you're a corporation under the corporation. So that takes the liability from, on the structure. That's the point, is that people don't get this point of the truth of what goes on. They don't get it. And so that's the one thing that when I do all this reading and the stuff I do and the knowledge that I come up with and then put the stuff together and then step out of the movie and watch the production, like I tell people, always step out of the movie, watch the production. It's like if you ever watch, you could even type in making a movie soundboard and watch the video. There's a 28-minute video basically making a movie soundboard that explains to you how a movie basically is set up on a soundboard. And that's what you want to do in your cases. You want to sit there and write this stuff down, put it together, and make sure that you've got this stuff together so when you're sitting there outside the movie, you can watch the production and you know how the movie's going to go. And if you play the instrument right and do your knowledge correctly, then you know how your movie's going to end. But that takes a lot of knowledge, a lot of education, which I am going through right now myself. I am paying attention to a lot of circumstances. I've got things in the works right now on some big projects, but I'm not going to bring this stuff out until after I succeed. I'm not even going to walk people through it until I succeed. But the point is I'm not going to sit there and hold your hand through it. I will put the knowledge together. But if you don't follow through with your own structure, that is not anybody's responsibility but yours. Because it is frustrating that we're supposed to have men and women, responsible adults, but there's too many little children out there. That's the thing that is so disturbing. We get more children that are out there claiming that, I have my rights. But, I remember, when I was in my teen years, and I used to be that guy that was sitting down in the street that was telling the cops off sometimes when they harassed me. And I know my rights, but, when it really comes down to it, after what I used to say like 35 years ago, I look at it today, I had a concept of my rights. I didn't know my rights. I had a concept. I know my rights today a hell of a lot better than the concepts I know. And that is the one thing that we have to know these things instead of going back and forth. I don't get into, the lizard people and all the other structure, because when we get that, we get distracted from what the real truth is. And you have to know what the real truth is. You have to know if you're lawful or legal in this country. That's the one thing I ask people all the time to clarify. Are you lawful or legal? And it's your duty to prove that you're lawful or legal. Not the courts. And everybody goes, well, the courts did this and the courts did that. And this is like where I'm getting with the Amish people that were filing that a couple of the cities said if they didn't get on city electricity, they were going to go after their land. Well, these men and women need to file on their land rights and learn how to do it. I'm learning. I don't know, when I get to the point, I'll be willing to pass the knowledge on, but I want to make sure once I get it, I got it done correctly. And that is the main point of doing it correctly. And once it's done correctly, then I can sit there and, give the knowledge on. But I'm not going to sit there and start walking people through the process right now until I have succeeded. Because there's no point of leading you down a road and then pulling the reins back and say, whoa, wait a minute, maybe I made a mistake here. I want to make sure I don't do that. But when it comes to immigration in this structure with the Amish people, you have to file for your rights to be in this country. You have to know if you're lawful or legal. So, and most Amish bloodline goes back, hundreds of years in this country. But it's still the same circumstances to know if you are lawful or legal in this country. That is thy responsibility to know if you are lawful or legal. That is not some court system that has to go out there and do that. That is the one thing that people don't realize when you go to court. You have to know if you are lawful to that judge or legal. you have to go in and file in that court to know the jurisdiction you are in. And if you don't file and know the jurisdiction you are in, that's your liability, your fault. Everybody goes, well, the judge was supposed to tell me this. No. Remember, the judge doesn't work for you. He works for a corporation called the City, County, and State for the Vatican Christianity Bible of the churches. Your court system, technically, is the church system. That's why they wear the black robe called the dead man's robe. And that is the one thing that you've got to start realizing what, why, and how the courts really work. Why do you think they wear a black robe? Type in black robe Christian Vatican. You'll be amazed when you start learning what the Black Robe Corporation is. That is the one thing that is your responsibility to protect your children. If you don't protect your children, that's the thing. Is everybody goes, well, I protect my children and I send them to school and I do this and I do that. No, you don't. Because you didn't file ownership of your bloodline. And I get people that tell me, well, why should I have to file ownership of my bloodline? Well, then quit claim. The way I look at it, quit telling me you love your children because you don't love your children. Because you're saying that your children are above somebody else's children, and because your immigration rights, you think you have a right instead of a privilege in our country? Sorry, the Constitution in United States Code 8 on immigration clearly states, for lawful bloodline Americans, if you're an immigrant, you shall not primarily be employed. You shouldn't. You know, and everybody goes, well, and then you always hear these arguments, well, these people do the jobs that you and I won't do. And I get so tired of listening to people say stupid stuff like that. Because anybody do a job. I mean, I did gardening growing up. I did landscaping and worked on building rock walls as a kid, a teenager and stuff. You know, I mowed people's lawns. I pruned the trees. Sometimes I picked veggies. And when I hear people saying, well, you don't like that because that's not your job, and, you know, I get so disturbed when people out there try to downplay somebody because they are lazy themselves. Because they don't want to give up their day and do something more constructive for somebody else to help somebody else out. You know, and if somebody asks you to do something, just be honest for a change in your life. Say, no, I'm not interested. You know, I mean, it's like, honesty is the best policy. That's the way I've always believed it. That's the way I grew up comprehending these things. And so, if you don't have honesty, what the hell are your purpose? You know, is your purpose just to basically be out there robbing the people of this communities? And I don't like the word communities, because that's a British terminology. And this is the one thing that gets to me, people. We've got to start learning what the words mean, and we got to stop using shortcuts on words. And if we get to know the real meaning of words, I mean, it's like the one thing when you slaughterhouse, slaughter meat, and you drop the S, well, now you got laughter. So it's one of those things when you do these type of circumstances with the words, and sometimes, you know, I mean, I suggest that people do that in outing with their children. Literally, you know, sit there with a whole bunch of words and write them up and then drop them down. And say these things, learn from them. Especially with the kids, they learn a lot. I don't care if your kid is 5, 7 years old. I mean, you start teaching them the Constitution. Seriously, you teach them the Constitution, and by the time that they are 10, if you start at 5, they're going to know more about it than you are. They'll even know more about it than the teacher at school. You cannot say that your kid does not have intelligence at 5 years old. Their minds are fresh. They think. And yes, they can handle things very highly educated. That's a true point. They really can handle highly educated circumstances. So it's really disturbing when people sit there and they don't do and follow through with their own children on education. And that's the one thing I want to get into, because the Amish people, some of my research, I haven't done extensive research on it yet. I'm getting into bits and pieces as I'm going along here. And, they educate their kids. They know about the dirt. They know about the soil. They know the soil better than most gardeners do today. That's the one thing that they know how to grow food, plants, and also, too, the women know how to sew and take care of a home. Today, women go to a job, they come home, and then, sit in front of a TV set. There's very few women out there when they come home that actually knit, sew, crochet, do stuff for the home. Most people go to work, they come home, they sit in front of a TV set, and they expect that to be life. And then when things happen and all of a sudden people are not getting, circumstances of life, and then they're whining because they don't know how to do things in life. That's the frustration we're living right now. Today, our country is falling apart right now, today, on these things. So when it comes down to the Amish people, and they're being told how to do this is what I've talked to their newspaper. Hopefully their newspaper, a couple of their editors said that they were going to publish a deal for tonight's talk show in their deal, because most of them don't have radios, but they do have a gathering site where some do gather and listen to the radio, but that's what I'm informed, but I don't know it because I'm not there. I can't see that point. But if they do, it's filing their rights, owning their children, getting out of that corporation system. And see, I don't know if they're registering themselves or if they still got birth certificates or how they are doing that in their community, because I haven't sat there and did the research, because I'm doing research on other stuff, on our rights to travel, on our rights to hunt and fish without licenses. I've got a lot of that down. Putting together instruments to start filing on these things. I've already filed it, but I realize that I have to tighten up these instruments, and it's due to the knowledge of the way wording is done. And that's where I'm looking at, that I'm finally putting this together and comprehending the wording more than I did previously of how it works. And I've had some good response with some senators and state representatives on this. So, and I'll bring that out, and probably it'll be about a month before I bring all this other stuff out, because the House and Senate's opening up. And so bringing this stuff out again. This is the point that it's like, that's the one point that is one of those things that is the circumstances of the truth of it. And that is the point that we have to look at, is how the actual paperwork does. How the paperwork are filing. How it is to present it into lawful or legal court system. Knowing what the corporation definition is. Knowing what program you are filing in. Comprehending of your instruments that you are filing with another man or a woman in personal property damage. And that includes elected and public officials. Because like I do suggest to men and women, you make your complaint, absolutely. I don't have a problem with people filing their criminal complaint. The only problem I have is people who are not filing the criminal complaint. Because you're putting a complaint in, and the complaint means I'm a whiner, wham, 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 wham. That's exactly what it means. So you're not filing a criminal complaint. You're filing a complaint saying I'm nothing but a little whiner. And that's exactly what it means. There is no ifs, ands, or buts with that stuff. So it's knowing what you are filing, how you are filing these things. That's why on new.org and trackers we have a lot of structures up there to look at some examples we have. We got more and more going up in the public filings, not only from us but others. I know a lot of people that like to do motions. I don't do motions because motion, to me, is a motion of a boat that's on the ocean. I insert my rights. So I don't want to sit there and say I want to file a motion. I'm filing an affidavit of rights. So that way I know how it works. I know the way it's supposed to be done. So you have to comprehend these things of how it works compared to what you think it works. So if you're not filing your paperwork, so that way it comes across lawfully and legally, and that is because of the wording. It's knowing how the wording works. If you do it lawfully and legally, you eliminate any conflict of interest. And when you put an instrument in, you always want to put in a line to have the attorneys, the court clerk, the judge, to admit that they have no conflict of interest with each other. You always want to put a conflict of interest statement in each and every case. Because if they have a conflict, because see, when you go to court, technically, you're supposed to go to a court system of a grand jury of 6 men and 6 women. You're not supposed to go in the front of a court that has a man or a woman acting as the head of the structure. You're not supposed to go to court for a man and woman that is claiming the rights. This is the point that people do not comprehend this fact. How do we get to the point we are? That's the main point. And the other point, I'm going to be going through my friends list coming up again because I'm going to start deleting people because I'm getting tired of these Democrats or heavy religious people that are trying to tell me that if I don't go by their religious beliefs, I'm the devil. Well, shit, if I am the devil, I'll come back. I'm coming after you first. Otherwise, wake up. I get tired of little children. You know, it is tired of little children when it comes down to it. Because people are sitting there out there trying to educate people to get the knowledge of the real truth compared to the fantasy that people are living by the school systems or a failure. I proved that in 2002 when I recalled the entire school district board members in Lincoln County. Not only that, indicted them for $30 million that they put in their own pockets. But do you care? Hell no! You're probably one of those people that would love to sit there and line your pockets because you have no honor. And those who have honor, I praise. And I've had people, come on, Ed, wouldn't you do that? Wouldn't you do that? Come on, Ed, admit the truth. You sit there and line your pocket. No, I don't do that. I actually have honor for myself. Because the one thing is, I went through a bad relationship where people are going, well, you cheated, she cheated, everybody cheats. Not everybody cheats. And the one thing is that it's like I had a lady one time in a relationship I was with that had another lady trying to get involved, and she's like, don't worry, I won't tell anybody. And I said, I'm scared as hell because I know the truth. I have to sleep with myself. I have to look in the mirror. I'm not like other people that could go, oh, I'm a Christian, I can go forgive myself and I just pay my way and so that's done deal. I have what they call honor. I'm not going to go pay somebody like so-called some church or the Vatican to say that gives me a right to rape, rob, and steal like your elected and public employees do today. Like your tax collectors do today. And that's the one thing that you have to comprehend these things of how it works compared to what we think it is. Especially like immigration. Everybody's going, oh, we need to have open borders. Well, let me tell you something. These men and women come into our country, into our territories. They're bringing diseases in. They're bringing terroristic activities in. That could even be certain religious rituals that are harming somebody else, man or woman. They don't have a right to do that. And that's where people have got to comprehend these circumstances stating what the truth is. You don't have a right to come into our country, or I don't have a right to come into your home until you had to live. So when you come into our country, and that's like these elected and public citizens that are going into the Amish communities, telling them that they have to live on this, and like these public servants who have been having men and women put in jail for wind power, solar panels on their home, collecting ponds on their property to collect rainwater. How they're getting away with it, folks, is simple. You're not filing your rights to that. You're not filing for your land rights, for your land. You haven't taken it out of their custody. Because the title on land is the same thing as the title of a boat, same thing as the title on a car, same thing as the title of your own children when you register your children. You know, because when you register your children, you give your children over to the state, you're saying you're not responsible. That's exactly what you were telling the people. And these public servants know this stuff. They're not going to tell you. That's why they're making 70 grand a year, 80 grand a year, 100 grand a year. You know? I mean, this is the one thing I find totally sick. You know, in Denver, Colorado, now it's legal to defecate and urine on the streets. So, in other words, what they're doing right now, folks, is setting you up for the plague. They know it. They don't care. As soon as you comprehend the reality of the real world compared to your fantasy that you live in or your Disney channels that you watch. Now, this is the third city that made it what they call legal to defecate in the public. And people go, well, that's acceptable. All right, well, go behind a tree or something where it's not noticeable. Well, you don't do it right in the middle of the street where people can watch you. That's the whole point. Where is the people's common courtesy, respect? Children today have none. Their parents are their failures. Parents don't even teach. A lot of parents, I'm not saying all parents, but a lot of parents don't even educate their children. They get the kid, they send him to school. The kid comes home from school. They put him in front of a TV set. That's their babysitter. And then people go, well, the kids are being taught right. No, they're not, folks. They're not being taught a damn thing. They're not being taught anything whatsoever. That is the saddest part of this structure, what's going on in our communities today. That's like what's going on with the Amish, where they're telling them if they don't get electricity, they don't get electricity on their land, they're going to lose their land and go to jail. I can repeat again, they've been putting men and women in jail for putting solar on their lands. They've been putting men and women for putting water structures on their land. But you have to file yourself out of their system. You have to file it correctly. And that is the one thing that I'm comprehended this stuff a long time ago. But now I'm putting the comprehension and other education together so I can see going, okay, now I'm putting this stuff together. I'm putting the things together so I can see the truth here. I mean, it's been interesting because I've been doing a lot of learning over the last few years, passing this on. And anybody knows that's the truth. I file my structures, and like I tell people too, that, when you do your paperwork, you always want to make sure it's publicized, especially in a local newspaper. And if you don't have the resources, you make sure you do it on public media so you got it out there. Because that's the one thing, it's your responsibility to make sure it's out there. It's your responsibility to make the filings done. Because if you don't take responsibility for this, it doesn't exist. And that's the one point that I find interesting with people who are filing different things. And they always go through a lawyer, attorney. Lawyers and attorneys do not work for you. They work for the Vatican. They work for the Christian court system. And that has been proven on the court system. Yeah, it's not a joke. I mean, that's what I'm saying. I got a flyer that I put up, a little cute little deal that I got up that I put up there that says, the judge tells this guy, me and your pastor are the same men for God. You know, I mean, that is the one thing that people have got to sit there and comprehend how it works compared to the fantasies that we are led to believe. The thing that's disturbing with the Amish is trying to get them to comprehend how to stand up for themselves in their paperwork. And, you know, when you talk to some of these newspaper people dealing with the Amish people, as I have done the whole last week and part of the week before, most of these people tell me they don't even give a shit. They just put together a paper, and who gives a shit if people, you know, I mean, it's their deal, and people believe it or not. So in other words, it's mind control. And that's where people have got to come to the reality of this stuff. What is the truth? Now, I've been getting some other knowledge on possibly the way the Bible is written, but, you know, I still have my strong points of view that I grew up with, and including as a, you know, when I went to decide to become a reverend and do all that other stuff, you know, I mean, I'm looking at things a little differently because of my knowledge and what I've done. But life is one of those things of how do you come up with the truth? How do you know the truth? And these are the things that we need to know how to do this stuff. We need to make sure that our structures are protected. It is our responsibility to protect the children. It is our responsibility to protect our land. And as soon as people start comprehending, it's their responsibility instead of whining and crying like little children. So many people whine and cry like little children, it's amazing. You know, and I plan on getting back heavily into the birth certificate structure probably next week or the following week, because I want to get into the birth certificate structure and walking people through the truth of it, because we want the birth certificate. We want to know who's lawful in our country and legal. Our immigration laws started in 1770, people. Do your real history. Without that Immigration Act, because that's why we actually went to war with the British government in the Revolution War. Please read real history. Learn real history. Because if you don't learn real history, what's the point of you lying to your children for? And one thing I do know, people lie to their children just as bad as the schools do. That is the sickening part about all this stuff. People are allowed to lie. Your cops, type in police departments. Police have no rights to protect you. They don't. You know, I mean, they don't have a right to protect you at all. They really don't have a right to protect you. That's the saddest part about life. And you have to know, if you're born or if you're birthed. If you're birthed, you have no rights. You're a ship. You're owned by the state corporation, the hospital. These doctors know the truth, too. Trust me, they really do know the truth. I talk to them all the time about the circumstances of these things. And they know it. They know the separation of the birth certificate. They know the separation of lawful and legal. Doctors do know this. You know, ask your physician sometime about the truth. Well, what's the deal about a birth certificate, and what's the deal of having a life certificate? And you just want to stay away from anything that says certificate, unless it's certified certificate. You want that child certified certificate that you own that bloodline. Hospitals can do that. Some are actually doing it today. You want them to prove that it's your child, not the state's. So when you're doing that, and that's proving you're lawful bloodline American, like I said, immigration don't have rights. I mean, I put many bills in around the states, even asking for immigration that gets caught to be shipped out immediately. It's not our responsibility to take care of these men and women from foreign countries. It's like everybody wondering what the truth with Gaddafi. Gaddafi was assassinated because he wouldn't take the foreign federal debt note paperwork. Plus, he found a spring in his country that they said that was the purest water in existence in history that nobody's ever seen before. So he set up pipelines to all of his cities, basically free of charge. Gaddafi did the same structure as America was supposed to do before the bankers stole it. That all lawful Americans in his country, if you were in his country and it still went by 5 or more generations, in his country was so simple. You're 5 more generations, you didn't pay medical bills, you didn't pay doctor bills, and when you got married, you were given a stipend to buy a brand new home. But do these people want you to know the real truth? Hell no. Because lying, cheating, and stealing, that's how these people make their money, just like cops do, just like judges do. I'm not going to say that on bookkeepers because we got some really good bookkeepers out there in our court systems. We really do got some good bookkeepers. But the point is that with the good bookkeepers, you need to help them out. And when you have public servants, you need to do this and help them out. You can't sit there and ask somebody else to do your work for you. And believe me, I know that. I get people all the time, would you write this for me? No, I can't because I don't know your situation. I could give you some knowledge and some history and laws on it. Heck yeah, I can do that. But I can't sit there and I'm not going to sit there and write your story and your structure together. It's not my life, and I'm not going to waste my life in that fashion. And the reason why I say waste my life because I have severe medical issues. That's just reality. So I'm in, and this is the point that we have with immigration, knowing your lawful and legal rights in this country. And I'm going to get into USC as soon as I can pull it up. And then my computer's been really running extremely slow lately. As soon as I can pull it up. And one gentleman asked me to post stuff on his Facebook. And sorry, guy, I can't because you don't have it open for me to post. So when it's not open for me to post, I can't do anything about it. So, you know. That's the one thing that people always ask. So when you ask to have things post, folks, if your board ain't open, I'm not going to sit there and waste so much time chasing around you. It's not worth it to me. I mean, I'm finally getting to the point in my life, you know, if people don't want to listen and comprehend and don't, you know, I don't mind, you know, walking with somebody, but I'm not here holding your hand starting from the point one. You have to have some knowledge, some opening in your mind, some concept to comprehend how these things work. Some knowledge to know what direction you want to go in. And that is the biggest part, knowing what direction to go in. And this is your responsibility. Now, I do comprehend when people were not educated and they're slow learners. I can agree with that one because they always just classify me as slow learner. And this attention deficit disorder, type it in, it's bullshit, and your kids are on that when some doctor says it, wake up, quit being stupid. I mean, seriously, you got to quit being stupid. Because attention deficit disorder, every animal's got it. Deer, horse, cattle, fish. Well, it's not really an animal. Depends on what breed. Especially man, woman, and child. We all have attention deficit disorder. It's not a medical deal. It's a fraud. It's out there to play for financial gain. That when the House and Senate passes certain bills, they put in certain funding, and now when these pass these House and Senate bills, the money that goes into these counts are supposed to go to the disabled men and women and the men and women who are deserving of these accounts. The way it truly is supposed to work. That's a fact. That's the way it truly is supposed to work. But then you get men and women out there when they do this stuff that don't get the resources that they're supposed to get. Remember, these resources are for we the people. They're not for the corporation. They're not for these psychiatrists and these doctors and all this other shit. They're supposed to technically go back to our pocket, so that way it's our income. It's our structure. When they pass administrative bills and when it comes to funding bills at the Capitol, when it comes to disabled and all that stuff, it's like you don't get it, people. When they do all this stuff to you, they take away your rights. And people go, well, I ended up in giving up my rights doing this, that, and the other thing. Well, yeah, you did give your rights away, but see, you have to file and claim your rights. If you don't own your rights, you don't own you. And that's the point that you got to comprehending how to own you. And I got more and more templates I'm getting ready to put up. And the one thing I do preach to people, and I mean please, go read how to own your child. If you don't claim your child, the state does that. The state attorney general owns your child. They pass it on to attorneys in the bar association or the bar club. Now, attorneys are registered bar members. There's no such thing as a license for an attorney. Of course these men and women lie. That's their job to lie to you. And as soon as you start comprehending that a cop's job is to lie to you, physically, to lie to you, you might get somewhere. As soon as you figure out that the judges are physically, legally allowed to lie to you, you'll figure it out. Legally is a terminology of the British Roman Catholic Church structure in their court system. The courts are actually run by a foreign agency from England. So when it's like the District of Columbia Court, you're talking a foreign court system. That is the point. You got to really look at the structure of what's really going on in our country. In our country. See, once people start putting this stuff together and realizing it's our country, our liability, our circumstances, and it's not about somebody else's opinion or belief. I mean, that's the beauty about the First Amendment. It gives you the right to believe in your religion. It gives me the right to believe in my religion. That's the beauty of the First Amendment and our Constitution. It gives us the right to believe the way we want to believe, so long as that we do not cause personal and property damage to another living man or woman. And it's that simple. And so when we're not causing personal or property damage to another living man or woman, hey, we're beating the game. We have honor now. Isn't that truth where there's honor? So once people have honor, then all of a sudden we have rights. Not privileges. Privileges are 5 or less generations. Honor is knowing your lawful bloodline versus legal citizenship. And once you do comprehend legal citizen and lawful bloodline, you know that you have rights, not privileges. Soon as people comprehend their rights, not privileges, and knowing the separation of their standing when they go to court. So when you go to court as an illegal, you realize that you have privileges and no rights. When you go to court as a lawful bloodline American, you have to comprehend your rights, prove your rights, and be right. And this is where Ken Ball, or, he's had several different names up on the internet here the last couple of years. Sort of shameful, because 5 years ago, we and him used to do talk show series and stuff like that, and till the truth came out on his little incident. Of course, his family are public employees, so it's interesting contact with that whole circumstance. Of course, he refuses to talk the truth with me. He's telling everybody in his little group, oh, get rid of the birth certificates, open the doors, let immigration in, oh, God, God, God. Well, sorry to hate it, folks, but an immigration is privileged. That's a fact. It's privileged personnel. Yes, you heard me correct. Privileged personnel. Some will say, oh, well, that's slavery. Well, okay, call it what you want. You call it slavery. I know it's privileged personnel. Because we have men and women that come into our country, and it's a privilege to be here. It's not a right. People go, well, I'm a citizen. Well, look at the terminology and the legal definition of citizen and national. That means that you belong to a corporation member. You don't have freedom. You are a registered slave under citizen and national. So that means if you're five or less generation, four or less generation, hey, you're not entitled to rights. And that's the way it should be and shall be done. You're not entitled to rights. You don't sit there and come to our country. That's like me walking into your home and sitting down in your chair, taking your remote out of your hand, telling you to bring me a rum and coke and shut the hell up. They're going to probably shoot me if I did that in your home. I mean, an honorable woman or man would do that or stand up. And so we got these men and women doing that, and then we've got these corporation members like district attorneys and terrorists like acting Governor Jerry Brown, acting terrorist Governor Kate Brown, allowing terrorists to come in our homes. We've got terrorists that are getting in car accidents, murdering people, raping our 14, 15-year-old children. And these people called Kate Brown and Jerry Brown endorse human trafficking. They endorse rape, rob, and murdering. Yes, they endorse it. They know it's happening. But see, remember, these men and women are actual attorneys. And without rape, robbery, and assaults, they can't make a living. They can't sit there and go after your funding and steal from your pocket because you're supposed to go to them to pay the privilege to have what they call justice. Well, I believe in the law of the jungle. I don't believe in what Bush Sr. says, oh, the law of man. That's the devil's law called, what is that called? The legal system. Legal, you have to ask permission because legal is British structure. And the Constitution is actual American. So once you comprehend the separation of legal and lawful, lawful is Constitution, legal is permission. So until you file your rights out of their system, you're always, all you're going to do is ask permission. You will never get anywhere with you so-called what you think are rights. You'll never get there. See, if you sit there and argue these points without sitting there comprehending how to file for them, that's the one thing that you need to learn how to do is file. Stand up for yourself. Nobody else is going to stand up for you. You know that. So it's your responsibility to file for your children. It's your responsibility to educate your children on how for them to file on their responsibility. And if you don't sit there and file on their responsibility, How are they supposed to know the difference to protect themselves, to protect your children? If let's say they're your grandchildren, your great great grandchildren, who's going to protect their ability? See, that's the point that people don't comprehend these circumstances. Who is going to protect their ability of the children if you don't? Who's going to do it? Nobody's going to do it because nobody's there to protect the child. It's like everybody's panicking with Jeff Sessions going after the pot bullshit. Tell you the truth, I don't give a shit if you smoke, drink, or whatever. That's your right to kill yourself if you want to do heavy drugs too. Go do it. I don't care. But you can't sit there and go whining that I'm a drug addict. Hell no, we're not buying that bullshit because you chose to do that responsibility. What it is, a responsibility, you claim to do a responsibility to do those type of things, so you have to be responsible for your actions. I get so disturbed when people want to whine and cry and go after these points of view or these immigrants on Facebook and in the news media going, I'm a dreamer, I have a right, I'm DACA, I have a right to DACA. DACA basically is, if you look at the wording, or if you comprehend the English wording of it, DACA, that's docking a ship. So I'm docking my illegal butt on this territory. I'm docking my ship here. To me, it's just amazing how people don't see how simple the truth is. To me, the wording, that's the one thing that I've been learning a lot the last few years on the wording. I'm, trying to get a lot more of that information out to we the people. And that is our responsibility to start learning the wording. We've been so confused and lied to. Like one man keeps telling me, we're lied by, basically popes, preachers, Vatican personnel. Of course, I go with police and most public employees. I haven't got all that one down, but I'll get it down someday, some things, because he does get a good wording on what he says on it. I just have my beliefs in the paperback or paper book or things like that. Because I'm one of those guys that when I've been hunting in the woods and I go living life in the woods, I go by what I see compared to what I read. I didn't read how to go hunting. I didn't read how to go fishing. It didn't take me a book how to go travel in the woods and mark my trees or stuff like that going in the woods. I mean, when I was a kid growing up, I just don't know. It was like I instinctively knew it. That's the way I could say about it. So these are things that we have to learn and teach ourselves. And if you're not used to knowing these things, I agree with that. You're not used to knowing these things. So that's what education is all about. Real education. Our schools are nothing but a failure. And so as soon as people comprehend that the schools are nothing but a failure, and it's like I put this stuff out dealing with the rights and how to register to own your bloodline. Don't take my original paperwork. It gives you a guideline. I mean, I'm just putting it out for responsible adults. So I'm assuming that people are supposed to be responsible adults. So if you're not a responsible adult, what are you complaining about? So that's what always gets to me, how people want to whine about things, or, I know how the court system works, and then when you get to court, you get slammed. And that is the point that most people get slammed when they go to court, because when they go into court, they don't know what their jurisdiction is. They don't ask for a conflict of interest statement before they get to court. I get people all the time that say, well, I said this, I did that in court, I did that. And I'm going, why didn't you put it in writing? Well, I didn't think about that. And I'm like, and some of these people I even talked a week before they even went to court. And it's like, don't give me this bullshit. You're telling me that you didn't think about it when we talked about it on the phone last week. And then I always love it when they go, oh, that's right, I forgot. Well, okay, well, if you're getting drunk, you're having your hemp and you're doing your stuff, great, but take a pen and paper and make notes. Or if it's actually mind over matter, if it minds, it matters, and if it don't mind, it don't matter. And that's what you're telling me. It don't mind. It don't matter to you. Everybody wants somebody to do their paperwork for free, to hold their hand. We don't have, there's some of us, we don't mind basically helping people out, but you got to be appreciative. You know, the one thing is that when people sit there and go, well, aren't you a Christian? Isn't that the Christianly thing to do? Well, for you folks, I'd be honest with you, I don't believe in Christianity. I truly know about the Christian Crusades. I truly know about the Vatican and how the Christians and the Vaticans worked together and how the whole history came together. Because I deal with real history. I don't live in stuff that is brought by a book. I do the research. I've actually done the reading research. So it's that's the one point. It's like I've done that again. My God, I got that many. You know's already up on deal. I beat my old deal by 2-1. Not quite. Just yeah, I did. Anyhow, it's one of these things to know the circumstances of your rights when you go into court. Now, with the Amish people, I would love to sit down and get some more further knowledge to the elders that hopefully they'll pass down to their children to comprehend that they need to file and own their children. That means own them. And then when they're 18, you give the paperwork to them at 18 and they're free, and you teach them how to own their children, your grandchildren. And if they end up going into deal where the state tries to take them, you've already got the paperwork. I called this news channel 7 down in San Diego the other day because this child was in foster care, a 3-month-old baby, and the child died in the foster care. And it took them, there was 2 months where the foster care had this child, and they were putting it into the other family member's home, getting ready to do that the following week. And I was talking to the news reporter, and I said, why the hell would it take 2 months when it should have only took a few days to make sure it went right back into another family's members? But they have to go by Title IV money called Social Security that William Jefferson Clinton and Hillary Clinton did to rape, rob, and pillage. So that way the state of California could sit there and make money off it. They build that stuff after 90 days. So after 90 days, even though they put it in somebody else's home, they still get funding for 1 year after 90 days. Read Title IV, Social Security Act of Bill Clinton. So this is what I tell people. You got to read this shit, because these funding mechanisms they got, they go on further than what they lie to you about. You know, I was like typing in, you know, lottery machines and machines that are set up in this fashion so that way they can sit there like election machines. So there's another big fraud, election machines. How many people believe in elections? I don't. I used to work in elections department myself 35 years ago. One of my first biggest public employees job when I started out, I was 15 years old. So, and then I was told at that point that we had a summer job cleaning and repairing those were the old punch machines. So me and this other kid did this in less than, I guess it was like 5 weeks, 6 weeks. And the guy comes up and asks us how far along we are, and I said, we already rebuilt all these machines, cleaned them out, they're ready to go. And he goes, what the hell are you talking about? I had a 3-month contract to keep you guys on for 3 months. Well, that was the first time we knew about that one. And it's like, you know, we thought we were doing the right thing, getting these things knocked out, because we got it down to a fashion that we could pull them apart, slide it down to, you know, it depends on what day it was, me or the other guy, the other kid. And we would sit there and rotate, but we would slide them down, and we reassemble them, and we vacuumed them out, and we put them back in, the little old punch cards. That was back when they used to have the punch cards. So you just take off the face, you vacuum it out, and you screw the whole top back together. So we got done with the job, and then he's like, "What are you guys doing? I had you scheduled for 3 months. We didn't know that." And he's going, "But you're not supposed to work that quick." And that's when I started putting stuff together about government employees, how they take their time to bleed out the clock. Hey, that's the one problem I couldn't do, that is bleed out the clock as a public servant. I couldn't sit there and be dishonest. Most of your public employees are dishonest. And then those ones that are honorable, and including public servants called police officers, real police officers, they're not police officers. Technically, police is Nazi. They're peace officers. A peace officer is an honorable man or woman. A police officer is a Nazi agent. Learn the language. Learn how to read what the languages mean. Policing, you get it? Peace officer. Policing means I have the right to shoot anybody I want. What it really means. And people go, "Oh, well, you can't do that." Well, they get away with it every day. I mean, how many people, here's a good example, Lavoy Vinnikin. How many people actually filed, who even witnessed the murder on TV, on YouTube? How many people filed murder charges on the agent involved? You didn't. Their family filed a complaint, but they didn't file murder charges. That's what I tell people. You got to file criminal charges. The DA ain't going to do a damn thing for you, because those men and women have to cover each other's ass because they do that for insurance purposes. Right now, I've got the risk management of Oregon starting to do that, and another agency in my case with the governor, Kate Brown. And they're stalling me right now, again, because they reopened my case, but then they're trying to stall and bleed it off so if they get 90 days in, they can close the case up. This is how it works, folks. If they can bleed you off, they win. They don't love you. They don't love your children. They don't believe in the fucking Constitution. They don't believe in it because they go by a new contract policy of their new corporation. And as soon as you start comprehending how these men and women rape, rob, and pillage, because they go, "Well, we need to rape the children because, oh my God, the churches are going to make so much money because everybody's going to go for pittance." Hey, it's really true, folks. And then we got counseling jobs, so that way when we rape the children, we got to put them in counseling. So when they go to the House and Senate and they pass these administrative bills, they're putting that funding into that. Instead of the money actually supposed to go the way it's technically supposed to go by the lawsuits and settlements that have already been done in the last 35 years, with the interest and funding that's already there, they put it in so that way the public employees get pay raises, they get free cars, they get free food, they get their free parties, and it doesn't go to the injured party or victim. And when it does go to the injured party or victim, it's so minuscule, so little. It doesn't even matter when it comes down to some of the funding. I would like to see workman's comp. I will be setting up a talk show on workman's comp and how it works in the pirate structure, the original structure of workman's comp. But in 1990s, workman's comp changed from public and private to public, so that way you get screwed. And if they think that you're able to work, they cut you off to die, literally, to murder you. And it really is true, to murder you, because that way, once you become non-employable, you become a burden on society. And let me tell you, I can't tell you how many Christians have told me that one. "You should be dead, Ed, because you're a burden on society because you're disabled. You shouldn't live." I've even had pastors and preachers tell me that. "You're a burden on society. You shouldn't live because you're disabled." This is a real fact. This is real truth, folks. It does exist. And most of you know it even happens in your own churches, in your own communities. When a man or woman is disabled around you, do you go around them? Most of you don't. No, you avoid them like a plague. So it really disturbs me when people say, "Oh, well, the disabled have rights." I mean, I live in a very small community in Oregon. And I've had this small community that have gone after attacked me, even when the mayor and city council and all this stuff. It's been in papers. It's been in court cases. My court cases, got dismissed by conspiring with the so-called attorney that I thought was a friend of mine. And then I had one other court case that was dismissed. They said I dismissed my own $35 million lawsuit, which I thought was bizarre. Why would I dismiss a $35 million lawsuit when it was 90% guaranteed? But if I would have won my workman's comp case, that means every workman's comp case in the state of Oregon that proved the fraud that they commit by, like, Liberty Northwest Insurance was guaranteed. And not only that, the insurance agent involved directly in my workman's comp case who got the biggest boost in property or financial gain in the corporation was, that's right, it was Lars Larson's wife. It was a young lady, entrepreneur in it. Lars Larson talk show. That's why we don't get along too. He knows me. So I say, these people know who I am. I don't sit there and ask and be nice and ask for forgiveness. That's not my job. I'm not here for the pleasure of these people. I'm here for them to honor our contracts that we have with them. See, we have elected and public servants, and that's the point. We have servants. So as soon as you start accepting we have servants and quit calling your government. As soon as you start growing up and be adults and stop being little children because you have elected and public servants. Your elected and public servants are to serve you. Your pastors technically are supposed to serve you. Your churches are supposed to serve you. Churches don't give a damn about the children today. It's all about money. How much can we get into counseling? Oh, we're going to put the kids into counseling in the church, so we need to see how much money we need to charge them to come to this counseling program. We need to see how much money that the state's going to need to charge for a counseling program. What it's all about, money, money, money. They don't care about you. The children are the ones who ultimately suffer internally, emotionally, physically, and parents around financially. And the other point is that I encourage people in the state of Oregon Territory to call up the Utility Commission and ask them for my filing under House Resolution 192. If you really care. If you want to be able to write off your water and electricity bill, because I'm working on that here. We'll have that one bundled up here in a few months. But see, it's your responsibility. I get tired of listening to people wham, 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 wham. Because the bottom line is I do all this education for myself first. Oh yeah, I'm selfish when it comes to that part. Just like you're selfish when it comes to different things. But when I master these things and I finally comprehend how it works, I put them up. We have the Facebook channel. That's Civil War 1866 Lawful Bloodline Americans. We have the United States for Republic, Elected and Public Servants Oversights. We have the Recall Cape Brown site. Too bad the other Recall Cape Brown site was taken down by the men and women who failed on their recall petition. You try to explain and talk to these men and women, and some of them I personally knew. They didn't want to deal with the truth. Oh my God, we couldn't do that. We had to do it this way or that way to go in that direction. Yeah, that's what disturbs me about people. It's all about me, me, me. How do we sit there and make financial gain for me? It's not about we the people. See, and I get all the time when I hear people on the internet and talk shows go about we the people. There ain't no we the people when it comes to these people. Where's the we and the we the people? When I bring you guys in, let's we the people. Here's the paperwork. We're going to set up eventually probably another night to start going through this stuff. Or we might just start doing it on Sunday night. Probably be the best night. And like tomorrow night, I really plan on hitting the stuff with Ken Davis and the structure of the First Amendment really hard. Because if you're not filing and owning you, then quit bitching. I mean, it's like Ken Ball and all these people that are on the internet, and most of these people I've known for years. Some of the other ones I've actually known personally for 15 years. There's other people that have been on the internet known for 5, 10 years that we've actually worked on projects. And then when it comes down to the project, they don't want to learn, they don't want to do it, and then all of a sudden it's like you're on your own, and then they want to whine and cry because it didn't go their way when they weren't even part of the process. But then they're telling everybody how they were part of the process, but they weren't. See, that was the one thing that gets to me. When people sit there and they do this stuff. You know, it's like the other thing, you know, it's like, I always love this stuff because I got stuff with religion that when people bring this stuff up. You know, people go, well, Christianity is supposed to be part of the Bible, and it's supposed to be part of the court system, and it's supposed to be part of the states. No, it is not. Bloom versus Richards, 1853, Ohio State, 387, 390, 391. The Supreme Court of Ohio Speaker by Chief Justice Thurman said, neither Christianity or any other religious system is part of the law of the state. I hate it when my computer decides to go change something on its own. So hang on a second, I'll get this pulled up. This is from 1853 in the court system. See, people go, oh, well, the state and court should be combined. And it's like, and it's, the interesting word is part of the state. It is learning, which I have been paying more attention to the wording of the way words mean compared to what we think they mean. Now my page just did that to me. Come on. I hate it when my Facebook page is running slow and slow and slow. Somebody doesn't like me talking about this on the other end, I guess. But it gets into that, and I'll bring it up. I've actually put that in many of my instruments, which I don't have an issue with doing that. That is actually on Civil War Lawful Bloodline American site itself. So as soon as I can go and tap, get it, and my page comes up, and I can sit there and do that, I'm going to bring it up again. I'm going to read you. This is a Supreme Court decision, and it's one thing I've been blessful is listening to how certain words are put together and the meaning of the certain words. I mean, some of it I had a concept of it, but, you know, getting it to the point where you're getting it comprehensive, so you're comprehending the actual circumstances compared to your own knowledge. So anyhow, neither Christianity or any other system of religion is part of law of the state. And that's the one thing that I'm putting together too. It's the large S-T-A-T-E. It's not capitalized. It has the large S. It's not the small S that sucks you in as an immigrant to the corporation again. That's the one thing that I'm getting more clarification on the way certain spelling is done. So I want to make sure you guys comprehend the different spellings. So that way when you're filing a paperwork, you're using a capital first of the state, capital first of the state itself, capital, and the capital of the state. When you use all capitals, you are a foreign agent. When you use all small letters, you are a foreign agent to we the people. So it is comprehending the English in the proper way things are to be written. So this statute upon which defends, relies, prohibits common labor on Sabbath could not stand for a moment in the law of the state. It is the sole foundation with the Christian duty of keeping that day holy and solely motive to enforce observation of that day. So technically what that is saying to you, that is a holy day for those who want to be religious, but it has nothing to do with we the people of the corporation. It has everything to do with the corporation, but it has nothing to do with your rights to be free. The only reason why it has something to do with your rights to be free is called the First Amendment. But religion is not supposed to be in the House and Senate. Religion is not supposed to be in your cities and county corporations. Religion is a private structure, not a public structure. Because everybody has different religious beliefs. So you're entitled to your religion. I'm entitled to my religion belief. And that's the point that it's supposed to be in this direction of the First Amendment that gives us the right to be protected. And that goes back to even the Amish. Because the Amish people are being attacked, saying if they don't go by certain regulations, they're going to be taxed. They're going to end up losing their land. They're looking at going to try to put them in jail. There was a case 3 years ago where an Amish man was saying he didn't need to go get a registration or have an ID to buy a handgun, and that was against his religious beliefs. Bingo, folks, that's the point right there. You're claiming religion. He didn't sit there and say, you can't sit there and claim religion as a belief and a right, a constitutional right. You can't claim religion as a constitutional right. Your religion is protected by the Constitution. His right going in is under Title 42, 408, Section D, stating that I don't have to give this information because here's the law, and the Constitution gives me a right to have ownership so long as I don't cause harm, personal and property damage to somebody else by this instrument or article of weapon or by this machinery object or something to that effect. It's knowing how to write your court case. You know, you go into religion says this, and I have my religious rights. Who gives a damn? I don't believe in your religion. You don't believe in my religion. Your religion is not more powerful than my religion. My religion ain't more powerful than yours because it's your belief, my belief, our beliefs separate. Even if our beliefs are the same, you know, then we can pray together, as some would say. I don't believe in praying because what does praying do? I believe in having honest conversations. I can't say I don't believe in praying. I've done that with people before. But it's one of those things on the religious belief of responsibility. So when it comes down to the circumstances like what the Amish people are going through, like the men and women who have been charged for collecting rainwater gone to jail, for the men and women who have been charged for solar power on their property or wind power, they didn't file to own their land. They didn't file to own that equipment that they put on that land to give them their rights. And it's like Ken would say, why the hell should we have to file? Why do I have to prove this? And why do I have to prove that it's supposed to be that way? Well, our forefathers wrote these instruments so that way we were protected from invasion from foreign and domestic terrorists. Do you comprehend what a foreign and domestic terrorist is? That even comes from one's religious belief. You know, look at the Union Jack flag of the British government downtown London. Then look up the British flag of the Civil War flag. Union Jack Civil War flag. You might be surprised to learn what side the South fought for. The North, we weren't going to pay taxes. We didn't want your tea fees. We didn't want your tea tax. We didn't want to ask permission to go outside, and we sure the hell didn't want permission to pay taxes on our land. That's why if you go back to your organic Constitution, and if you go back to your original contract, because every state or territory has an original contract with the terrorists called the British government. Go back and get a copy of the original. Try to get it certified. But see, you go back and get the original copy of the certification of your country, your territory, from the British government called the Roman Catholic Church. Remember, this is church. This is dictating to you how to live by religion. That's a real fact. I don't believe in foreign religion. I'm native. Great Spirit, Mother Earth, and the Creator. I know with the ground, actually, I've tasted dirt before, growing up as a kid. We all done that, different things. I've even eaten escargot. I know how certain things, I've eaten some things that, Andrew Zimmerman, he does that talk show on food, or that movie, TV show on food. Some of the stuff, I wouldn't even try what he eats. But there's been stuff that he's eaten. I know what it's like to eat different bugs and stuff like that myself. But see, that's the point, that we don't step out of certain movies or productions and watch how life goes. I do recommend, before we open up the floor here, if anybody would like to bring in their comments, I do recommend strongly a movie called Interstate 60. It's on YouTube. I do ask people to watch that at least twice, because it'll open up your court system and your ideas to the truth of the court system compared to what you think it is. And then the other point is, we have up on there, I do believe that we have up with the Executive Order 10834, the structure of the flags, what the spear means, what the jurisdiction of the ball means, what the jurisdiction of the eagle means. Because remember, when you walk in that courtroom, anything on top of that flag that has any emblem on the top of that flag means the jurisdiction of that court. So when you go into court, you have to specifically put in writing, before you get to court, serve it to the clerk. That way you want a certified copy from the clerk that you certified it, filed it in court. And then when you walk into court, you have the certification. When a judge says your name, you ask him what jurisdiction. You don't get stand up and go, I'm so-and-so. You don't give him your name. You stand up and you have that paper in your hand. You ask him what jurisdiction is he citing from. Well, you do what I tell you. You do what I tell you. No, I don't consent. I need to know what jurisdiction you're talking about. I do not consent to you. See, it's learning how the wording goes in these court process of how it works. Trust me, I've been through the bumps and bruises on can't even speak. Somehow my tongue gets tied. Bruising on this myself. And then when I started putting the stuff together, and when I go into the courts and I start talking, basically not their language they want me to do, but I talk to them, here's how it works, here's this, here's that, and explain this and explain that to me, then, they started asking you, well, we'll take that into consideration, or do you mind leaving? Don't get in an argument. Is the court case done or no? If they ask you to leave, say thank you, case dismissed, and walk out. You just say case dismissed on your way out. They're not going to argue if they ask you to leave because they already dismissed your case. You just say it so it's on recorded record. Now in California, they passed administrative rule they're talking about that dealing with that says you can't audio and videotape in the courtrooms anymore. It's a federal crime if they do that. It's terrorist. And that's what they're trying to do. So that's what I'm saying. It's so important that you file in these courts your rights. If you do not file in the court system your rights of lawful or legal, or owning your child, owning your bloodline, including yourself as a bloodline, you don't have rights. That's where people have got to comprehend how the legal British Roman Catholic Christian church structure works in the courtrooms. But that has been proven. I got that proved back in 2006 at the Oregon State House and Senate. Ted Kulongoski got pissed off when people asked that question to him. Been there, done it. I mean, I've talked to these men and women that, in the hallways. I talked to Ted Kulongoski himself in the hallways. I always love these things that when these men and women on the internet say, get a driver's license, become a U.S. citizen. U.S. citizen gives you rights. And it's like, people, when you get people that are this stupid out there, you want to ask and you want to follow them in a sense to see who's paying them. Because these men and women out there, a lot of these are attorneys or legal aid, and they do this stuff for financial gain. They got a lot of foreigners out here on Facebook that do this for personal and financial gain to get you going through it, and then you find out they're a foreigner, and then you're wondering why you spent all this money out there when you didn't need to. It is sad. It really is sad that we get hooked up in this stuff. I am getting a different point of view, what they call on your Bible. I'm not arguing that, but I still have my points of view. But I can't predict the future on some things. But I'll tell you right now, I won't believe in 80% of it. But because it's written by man, man wrote it to control man. I mean, even ministers. I'm an ordained minister. I went through different things. I did research. I read. I've been through all this stuff. I got 40 years into this stuff myself. And so I'm suggesting, I can't tell anybody what to do, because it's like, number one, I'm not your father, I'm not your mother. I don't tell a man or woman what to do. I can suggest things or give an opinion, but remember, opinions are like elected and public servants, lawyers, attorneys, most of all, diapers that need to be changed, because an opinion is a diaper, because what happens when a child does his opinion of the day. So, I mean, it's like step out of the movie, watch the production, and it's interesting when we look at these things. Anyhow, I'm going to go ahead and suggest that we open up the floor for anybody who's got comments.
All participants are unmuted.
So, if anybody would like to speak up, the floor is open. Okay, guess nobody wants to speak. We'll just leave it open if somebody wants to speak at this point. But it is sad what's going on in our country today when we're allowing people to defecate in the city streets. They're doing that in San Francisco as well. Southern California has got one of the biggest homeless production problems that they're claiming in San Diego, near the Mexican border. That's why I just can't wait to see that border fence put up so we know who's actually in this country legally and lawfully. It's not our responsibility to feed immigrants. It's not our responsibility to send $1 billion to Israel. Israel needs to take care of themselves. I mean, it's even sad. The country of Africa right now, there's cities in Africa right now who have drought problems where they have basically, some of them don't even have running water right now. They don't have water in their cities. Did they prepare ahead of time? Well, yeah, in a sense, because the United States, back when Clinton was president, sent $1 billion over to set up a water processing plant for the ocean to desalinize the water, and nobody knows what happened to the money. That's an average circumstance that happens with public employees and the structure of public employees. The money disappeared. A couple other structures like that this country has done. Obama sent trillions of dollars out to other countries that services were not rendered, jobs were not done, but the money disappeared. Oregon wants to put up toll booths in the state of Oregon. That's federally illegal, state illegal, by their organic constitution, by the treaty that we have of 1846 with the British government, and the organic constitution, not the state of corporation constitution of 1859. And that is the one thing to comprehend with the organic versus the state corporation constitution and contracts are. They put these constitution contracts together under the corporation for personal and financial gain, done deliberately this way. So when you start realizing that it's deliberately done this way for personal financial gain, you start putting pieces together. When they pass like the tobacco lawsuits, they get all that money from the tobacco lawsuits. Whole bunch of money from the tobacco lawsuits. And what did they do with that tobacco money? They pocketed it. So how come that with a tobacco lawsuit that's going on right now in this country, and then, $3 on a pack of cigarettes is just tax. That's what's just tax on a pack of cigarettes. So where's the money going? Where is the money? Where is the money gone? Then that money they get in the tax, they actually do put in their budgets. So when they pass a budget, that's included. So where's the funding gone? What, why, and how? Where did it go? See, this is the one thing that people need to start looking about, how these men and women are taking advantage over finances. I got a YouTube video with me and Senator Arnie Roebling on there, where Arnie admits that the Democratic Party stole the uninsured motorist fund. That means the state of Oregon, Oregonians are not supposed to pay insurance. Elected and public employees aren't, registered church members, registered voters, and all immigration, mandatory by law. But if you are not a driver for commercial gain and you're a traveler, then you don't have to pay. You're supposed to be under the uninsured motorist fund. But they took that money and spent it for their own personal needs. See, that's where people got to comprehend how these circumstances work in such a fashion for their personal needs. How they do this for their children. Just like the bankers take that money and spend it on themselves. And that's the point that once we start comprehending this and we learn how to comprehend what the large spelling in front of some of these words are, the small spellings, and how they hook us back in to the corporation by different way the word of the meaning is, the meaning of the word is. So when they hook you back into these programs, into the structure to keep you into the system, remember, their job is to keep you in the system so that way they can utilize your Social Security number off to write off anything on that Social Security number. And so if you have issues on that, you file under identity theft. You file under 408 Section 8, USC 8, 408 Section D. That means that anybody use that Social Security number is a federal crime. Anybody. That means even the elected and public employee agencies use that identification number. It's a federal crime. So it is comprehending how the circumstances of these things actually work compared to what we've been led to believe. So then when we get into this with immigration, this is the point of immigration, and this is why with the Amish people have got to learn the separation of these facts. They got to learn that when these public employees, they're not their friends. I don't give a shit if it's their mommy and daddy. They ain't their friends because when they're working for a corporation, they work for the corporation. And that's the one thing you have to realize if you got family, because your family will turn you in faster than anything else because they want their job, they want their retirement. You're expendable. It's a true fact, or don't forget, it's Caesar's. You have to pay Caesar for the privilege. So, and I don't buy into that stuff. Either you're free or you're not free, or you're legal or not legal in this country. I don't support DACA. I don't support amnesty. The last time the biggest amnesty was done by Ronald Reagan when he did 1 million people. That turned out to be 3 million people instead of 1 million. And after that, Congress all agreed that that will never happen again in infinity in the world of history of the United States United States of America, 48 states. That was back in 1983 that this was never, ever supposed to happen again. And then I guess Trump is considering it again. Obama let in 60 million people. And you figure with 60 million people that Obama let in, double that right now, because just him alone, that's 100 million people we got. Where's the food? That's why 60% of the food in the grocery store is not real. It's fake. It's not real. Look at your rice packages from China and Indonesia and Jamaica. It's plastic rice. They got video tubes on YouTube video where people are cooked that rice up, rolled it up in a ball, and bouncing it around like a basketball. Real. Look at the label on it. It'll even say something about the rice. Some of them even have chemical. It says rice and then chemical behind it. When it doesn't just say rice on the label, that's when you need to be scared. But they can put rice there before the chemicals or the bounding structures and all that. Because you're going to go, oh, well, it's rice, but then what the heck is all these additives? People ain't going to read the additives because it says rice, so they just automatically assume. And that's what you do with your instruments. You assume. You know, that's what we do with our public servants. We assume. You know? I mean, I hate getting my butt kicked by an ass by myself. Ass you and me.
Right?
All those things like that hurt. So, go ahead. I thought I heard somebody speak up in the background there for a moment. Well, it's 6:46 here, 9:47 over on the East Coast. So I guess we'll get into more of the heavy-duty religion, what I plan on doing with this Kim lady about her public servants, because she's a public servant. She has no rights on the clock. I get tired of public servants going, I'm on the clock in my religion and my rights. You don't have rights at all. You gave over your rights when you got a paycheck. You are called a citizen public servant. You have no rights whatsoever. That's by federal administrative rules and state administrative rules and by the Supreme Court. So, and I mean, bless me, and I'll get into that tomorrow night dealing with the gay marriage stuff too. We'll do a talk show on that eventually, because I don't believe in gay marriage. I don't believe in gayness at all, but the Constitution says that these men and women have a right. Well, either you believe in the Constitution or you don't. You can't have your religion without having respect for somebody else's religion. If you don't like somebody else's religion, don't talk to them. Be a man or a woman. Don't act like a little child then. And when you get those people that are trying to drag you into their beliefs or their structure, you say, hey, I'm not into that. Not my structure. You can be honorable. That's the problem. We don't have honest and honorable structure with our people so much today. And this is the disturbing part we got, because everybody says, I want this, I want that, but are they willing to stand for it? Are they willing to educate others by the purpose of the Constitution? Compared to their own personal or religious belief, combining a religion. I mean, I do talk to quite a few people that are very heavy religious, and I do talk to a lot of people that read the Bible differently than other religious people read the Bible. So I mean, I do take into account of what they educate me on, and some don't, but some actually do educate me on some of these things. So I do have to take a different viewpoint, but my major viewpoint stands. The Constitution gives man and woman rights. You'll hear these idiots all these talk shows. The Constitution doesn't give you rights. This is the way it works. All these men and women who say that, I always love the national groups. Well, the national group, and then we have our own government, so we don't have to be part of this government. Well, I tell you, folks, the forefathers set up a government, and it's our responsibility to take care of that government. It's our responsibility to make sure that government works, like Benjamin Franklin said when he left the convention center. I gave you a republic if you decide to keep it. Remember, democracy is going to destroy you and your children. A republic says you have rights so long as you don't cause harm or injury or property damage to another. You don't have administrative rules or permission. You go jump off the bridge to the water, enjoy swimming, enjoy life. You know, you might hurt yourself, but that's part of life. But so long as you don't hurt somebody else, that's the main thing. That is the bottom line of the whole circumstances. When you don't do property or personal damage. So, but anyhow, I'm going to probably say that nobody wants to bring up anything. I'm going to probably call it an evening tonight. I'd like to thank everybody for joining us. We are not lawyers. We're not attorneys. We are just men and women that combining our education to bring it out to the general public. That we're bringing out to you. We're working on different filings and procedures of filings, so we can bring it out to you guys. So that way, you guys have our knowledge or learning from what we're learning. Don't get caught up in people's scams or games. When you look at different things out there, please step out, analyze it. Always sit down with a pencil and paper and look at it and see if it's worth going through it. We'll be eventually putting up a list on the website eventually, different movies that are going to be recommended. We'll recommend out there. They're educational. We're going to sit with basically try to get some comedy movies that I know are out there, like Interstate 60 and a few other ones. We'll put up recommended movies, and then we have a link already where you can watch other historical videos that we put up or other videos that we've been putting up there for educational purposes. Because the whole thing is about proper education. We are still working on the homeschooling program for the children to get that one more situated and more put together. But, there's only got a couple guys that are doing this, so it only takes, it takes us some time when there's a couple guys doing it because we don't have that many people. Boy, did I hit the pile today. So, God, tripled my last one. Just had a look. But we are promised a republic form of government. Article 4, Section 4. We are not a democracy. And as soon as you start talking about democracy, you're saying you don't believe in your country. You're not an American. You say you're a foreign diplomat or a foreign agent from another country, and you're trying to implement your religious beliefs and power into our soil that gives you some rights when you don't have them. So these are the facts that we deal with. We have to live in reality. We cannot live in Disneyland fantasy. And we got to start coming to reality. I mean, come on, look at Disneyland and the subliminal messages they put in the TVs in Disneyland. When you watch some of these cartoons, it is amazing with some of the split-second deals that people get in them. So, and then, life is a learning experience. Excuse me. Sorry about that. Life is a learning experience, so it depends on what you learn. So with that, I would like to say, may the Great Spirit bless you. May Mother bless you. Because without the Great Spirit, Mother Earth, we have no children, we have no food, and without the Creator, we don't have nothing, or otherwise known by others, by their religious belief, as a God. So see, I'm in religious belief and the terminology of God, and if you look through Germany's Bible, God means Satan by their Bible. So it depends on where you at, what part of the region, what you learn, what you know, what your faith is. But all I know is the First Amendment gives man and woman equal rights. First Amendment gives the man and woman the right to believe in their belief of their religious belief, their religion. I know men and women are supposed to be equal, and when people want to sit there and attack them for saying a woman don't have a right to an abortion, it is not your body. It's not your Bible body. It is a woman's right. It's her body and the parasite that she has inside of her. If the man is not responsible enough to pick the right woman, hey, shit happens. But that's where we're supposed to be adults, and so let's start acting like adults. So may the Great Spirit, Mother Earth, bless you, the Creator look over you, and do your research.
Well, thank you, Ed, for that informative show. Now, Ed said Article 4, Section 4 of the Organic Constitution. I'd like to read where it actually states. It should be on the screen right now, so we'll read along together on this if you're watching the show. Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution, the Organic Constitution of this wonderful country, states, the United States shall guarantee to every state in this Union a republican form of government, and shall protect each of them against invasion. To me, that means that anybody who is talking about democracy is invading this country. Anyone in the Democratic Party, to me, would be considered invaders. Even my son agrees, evidently. So, thank you so much for listening to this, and we'll catch you on tomorrow, on the 28th of 2018. And hopefully we'll have some good information. And if any of the Amish have been listening to this, Ed is wanting to help you. He may not believe the same way you do, but he believes in American rights. Not privileges, but rights. Thank you very much, and you all have a very good night.